Pickles.
Pickles are my absolute favorite. Cucumber pickles are one of the things I absolutely love to do. This is our garden at Phoenix Community Farm. We are working to improve food security in Midland County and everywhere. Food insecurity affects 1 out of 3 families in Midland County. 1 out of 3 families struggle to put food on their table every day. Many people have trouble affording fresh produce on their budgets. Phoenix Community Farm exists to address the food insecurity problem in Midland County. The farm consists of an 11,000 square foot garden and a flock of chickens maintained by passionate volunteers. We grow vegetables, fruits, and eggs, which we donate weekly. We're harvesting the cucumbers so that we can turn them into pickles. We are picking the fruit fresh, and then we want to can it within 24 hours so that it can be the highest quality, and that helps also with food safety. We wash our hands, then we're going to wash the cucumbers. We want to make sure that we remove the dirt, especially at the blossom end is where most of the contaminants are found. We're using recipes that are all USDA approved recipes from our USDA recipe book. We're talking first about pickling salt. Salt is really important.
Okay.
Not your table salt, not
Really?
iodized salt, not sea salt, pickling salt.
What's the difference?
If you do iodine, which I did the first year when I was on my own, I was like, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Follow my grandma's recipe. Yeah, they turned very funky colors
Oh,
from the iodine.
Okay.
And they also get more mushy because table salt has like anti-caking chemicals in it. And so pickling salt, that is what you want. It's important that we use pickling salt because it is the best salt for preserving. Iodized salt will cause your pickles to turn different colors. Kosher salt and table salt contain anti-caking ingredients. Anti-caking ingredients make the pickles more mushy, and it disrupts your measurement. So pickling salt is the best salt for making pickles. Today we're working on bread and butter pickles. There are several different kinds of pickles that you can do. You can do fresh pickles, refrigerator pickles. We are going to do hot water bath pickles. So we have our jars. We have jar lifter. We have a funnel to help get the stuff into the jar without having it go all over the outside. It's very important to have labeled jars. Jars that have a ball or cur, I think is another one. Labeled jars are less likely to break. You really don't want it to break when you put all that work into it when the jar goes into the hot water. When we do pickles are high acid food, so we do hot water bath canning. That means that we're going to immerse the whole jar into a large pot with water that goes over the top of the jar. That works to seal the jars. We use that for high acid foods. With low acid foods, you want to do pressure canning. Pressure canning is a different process we will teach in another video. The type of vinegar that you use is also very important. You need to have 5% vinegar, and you want to check that on the label. Homemade vinegar is not safe to use because the percentage of acid cannot be guaranteed. The safety of pickled recipes is based on the ratio of vinegars, and so you need to use something with guaranteed percentage-wise. The first step in this recipe is to cut and remove the stem, blossom end, and then we slice to about 1/16 of an inch. The recipe also calls for onions. We slice up a whole bunch of onions as well, dice them. Actually, I ran them through the food processor because this is a big batch and nobody wants to chop that many onions. We place salt on it and then we let it sit for 4 hours, and then there's a lot of liquid that comes off the pickles. We drain the liquid and then we rinse the salt from the pickles and drain that off, and now your pickles are ready for receiving the vinegar solution. This takes the moisture out of the pickles and dehydrates them so that they're ready to suck up the vinegar and seasoning solution. It's really fun to do this outdoors where we have no faucet and no sink. So we make it up as we go along here. It is possible in any situation. We also want to make sure that we're keeping things as clean as possible. Here we are mixing up the vinegar solution. 4 cups of vinegar, 4½ cups of sugar, 2 tablespoons mustard seed, 1½ tablespoons celery seed, 1 tablespoon ground turmeric. The turmeric gives it the very fun, yellow color. We're going to heat up that solution, heat it to boiling, so everything gets mixed up and cooking together. The recipe says to boil it for 10 minutes. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Then, after your solution is heated to boiling, then you're going to add in your cucumbers. We slowly reheated to boiling again. We are going to heat up the cucumbers, so this is a hot pack recipe. Hot pack is when you put your ingredients into the jars hot. Some other recipes use cold pack. With hot pack, you can preheat your water that you are using in the hot water bath. With cold pack, you don't want your water to be heated more than over 140 degrees. If you get it hotter than that with a cold pack recipe, you're going to break your jars when they go into the hot water bath. Since this is a hot pack, we can preheat our water and leave it to 180. So then we just fill the jars. You're gonna get the pickles to go in the jars. Make sure that you leave enough headspace. Headspace means that you have some room at the top of the jar so that they can seal properly. I am a chronic overfiller, so I try really hard not to put so much in that it's not going to seal. Mixture of the cucumbers and the liquid. You want all the cucumbers to be covered with seasoning liquid. This helps to preserve their color and freshness. You get everything filled and check if you have enough liquid in all the jars, and then you wipe the rims. You're wiping the rims of the jars so that you get very good contact between your lids and the tops of the jars. Brand new lids every time.
Every time.
Don't try to reuse your lids, please. Reuse your rings, but you cannot reuse your lids.
As you can see, apparently Beth has been reusing them for a little while.
You don't need to buy new. The lids are also rinsed ahead of time. Then you place them on top of the jars, which the rims have been wiped. And then you're going to put rings on. The rings are placed on just to hold the lids on top of the jar while they're sealing. They're only finger tight. You don't want to over tighten them. You just use 2 fingers to tighten it down just to hold the lid on. They do need to be able to bubble out some during the boiling process, so you don't want a super tight jar, otherwise you can break your bottom of your jar. Then you use your jar lifter to place it in the water that's been preheated a little bit. You're going to have on the bottom of your pot, you have some form of rack that helps keep the jars off of the bottom of the pot so that you're not getting direct heat right onto the jars or they'll crack. I think it's a theme. The jars, don't crack the jars. This is important. Then you're going to bring this back up to boiling. Once it starts boiling, that's when you start your timer and you can start your processing time. Processing time is the time that it needs to boil so that it can be safe and sealed. And you always want to follow the instructions, a USDA approved processing time. Make sure that you are taking into account altitude. Different altitudes need longer. If you're at a higher altitude, you need a longer processing time. So this butter pickle recipe I got from the USDA booklet, but it's very similar to my great-grandma's butter pickle recipe, and that's why I chose this one to demonstrate. You can do this recipe and just put the pickles in the refrigerator and let them sit for a couple weeks to season, and then they will be, you can enjoy them over the next few weeks. They're good in the refrigerator for a month. Once they're sealed, once you take them out of your canning process, you let them sit for 24 hours, then you're ready to have them stored in your cellar. You can store them for about a year. If you use things within a year, that's when they're most fresh, and that's ideal. They will be good sealed for a little bit longer than that. When you store them, you take the rings off and you store them with the rings off. And then when you get a jar out to enjoy it, you want to make sure you look at it, make sure everything looks nice. You don't see any signs of spoilage. And when you open it, you want to make sure that you hear the trademark pop. You hear that? Good.
My mother would get geeked when we were canning and everything was going.
You open and to make sure that you hear that it was sealed. Then you get to enjoy your pickles. That's my favorite part. Delicious pickles. Oh.
So with a little bit of prep work, when you're in high season with all the cucumbers coming in, you can enjoy pickles all winter. We were getting about 20 pounds of pickles every time we picked a row of pickles. So one could do this recipe every time they picked a row in high season. We share all of our produce at Phoenix Community Farm, so we are not swimming in pickles. But the advantage of canning pickles is that you can enjoy them over the whole winter. Especially here in Michigan, we have a long season where we can't grow fresh vegetables easily, so pickling is a great way to preserve them with a lot of flavor. Phoenix Community Farm wants to teach people how to grow produce, but also how to prepare it, how to eat it, and how to preserve it, and how to pickle it. To improve food security by giving people the skills to preserve the harvest, to be able to enjoy this food from the garden even into the winter.